The desert wind carried ash and silence across the ruins of Outpost Sigma 7. Vela Sin walked through the wreckage with her scanner raised, her silver eyes moving slowly over the destruction. Her pale blue skin was covered in a thin layer of dust, but she did not bother to wipe it away. There was too much death here to care about such small things. The Virax had come 3 days ago. They had killed everyone. That was what the report said. That was what Commander Drex Torum believed. The Kirith observation team had arrived to document the losses and nothing more. Rescue was not part of their mission. Rescue was never part of their mission when it came to minor species. Valeth stopped walking. Her scanner was showing something strange. A faint life sign, weak but steady, coming from the wreckage of a cargo vessel half buried in sand. She looked back at the rest of her team. They were far away, focused on cataloging the dead. No one was watching her. She should have reported the reading. That was proper protocol. But something made her hesitate. Something made her want to see for herself. The cargo vessel was badly damaged. Its hull had been torn open by Virax claws, and the interior was dark and filled with debris. Valeth climbed through a gap in the metal and activated the light on her wrist. The beam cut through the shadows and revealed a scene she did not expect. A human male was crouched in the corner of the cargo hold. He was wounded. Blood stained his shirt, and one of his arms hung at a bad angle. His face was covered in dirt and sweat, and his eyes were wild with exhaustion. But he was not running. He was not hiding. He was standing over a body. A human female, clearly dead, her eyes closed and her hands folded across her chest. Someone had arranged her that way. Someone had taken the time to give her dignity even in death. 3 scavenger creatures circled the human. They were small, ugly things with too many legs and teeth like broken glass. They wanted the body. They could smell the death. But the human would not let them have it. Valeth watched from the shadows as the human raised a broken pipe in his good hand. He could barely stand. His legs were shaking. His breath came in short, painful gasps. By every measure of logic, he should have fled. He should have saved himself and let the scavengers have what they wanted. But he did not flee. The first scavenger lunged at him. The human swung the pipe and caught it across the skull. The creature fell and did not get up. The second scavenger attacked from the side, and the human kicked it away with a desperate grunt of pain. The third jumped for his throat, and he caught it with his wounded arm, screaming as its teeth sank into his flesh. He slammed it against the wall until it stopped moving. Then he collapsed to his knees, gasping for air, still holding the pipe, still positioned between the body and any threat that might come. Valeth did not move. She did not breathe. She had studied humans in the archives. She knew their statistics, their biology, their short lifespans, and emotional tendencies. The Galactic Council classified them as a minor species, too primitive and irrational to be taken seriously. But the archives had not prepared her for this. This human was dying. He had to know that. He had no backup, no rescue, no logical reason to keep fighting. The female behind him was already dead. Protecting her served no purpose. It gained him nothing. It was, by every Kirith standard, a complete waste of effort. And yet, he fought. He fought as if her body was the most valuable thing in the galaxy. He fought as if giving up was simply not an option his mind could accept. Valeth watched him struggle to his feet again. He checked on the dead female, brushing dust from her face with trembling fingers. He whispered something Valeth could not hear. Then he turned back toward the entrance of the cargo hold, raising his pipe once more, ready to fight whatever came next. He did not see her. She was hidden too well in the shadows. And she did not reveal herself. She was not sure why. Perhaps she was afraid. Perhaps she was simply too fascinated to interrupt. The human stood guard for another hour. He did not sit. He did not rest. He simply stood there, swaying on his feet, refusing to fall. When more scavengers approached, he drove them away with rocks and shouting. When his legs finally gave out, he crawled back to the body and positioned himself in front of it, still holding his weapon. Then, at last, his eyes closed. His head dropped. His body went still. Valeth waited a long moment to make sure he was truly unconscious. Then she stepped out of the shadows and approached him slowly. She knelt beside him and checked his vital signs. He was alive, but barely. His body had pushed itself far beyond its limits. Any other species would have died from such effort, but he had not died. He had simply refused to. Valeth looked at the dead female behind him. She wondered who this woman had been. A friend? A lover? A commander? What had she meant to this human that he would destroy himself to protect her body? She did not have answers. She only had questions. And the biggest question of all burned in her mind like a fire she could not put out. Why? Why fight alone when there was no hope? Why suffer for someone who could not be saved? Why choose pain and death over the simple logic of survival? Valeth stood and looked down at the unconscious human. He was small by Kirith standards, weak, fragile. His species lived such short lives that they barely had time to learn anything of value. And yet he had done something today that she had never seen any Kirith do. He had fought for something greater than himself. He had chosen loyalty over logic. He had refused to abandon someone he loved. Even when that love could no longer be returned, she whispered the words before she could stop herself. I want to understand him. The wind howled through the broken hull of the cargo ship. The human did not stir, and Valeth made a decision that would change everything. She would not report his location to Commander Drex. She would not let the observation team leave him behind. She would find a way to save him, even if it meant breaking every rule she had ever been taught. Because for the first time in her life, Valeth had seen something that the archives could not explain, and she needed to know what it meant. Commander Drex Torrens stood at the center of the observation vessel's bridge, his tall frame rigid with authority. His silver eyes were cold as Valeth finished speaking. The silence that followed her request was heavy and uncomfortable. You want to rescue the human, Drex said slowly, as if testing each word for poison. One human, from a minor species, on a dead colony world? Yes, Commander. Valeth kept her voice steady. I believe he could provide valuable intelligence about human behavior under extreme conditions. Drex made a sound that might have been a laugh if the Kirith were capable of such things. Intelligence about humans? We have entire databases filled with information about their species. They are emotional, irrational, and short-lived. They fight wars over imaginary borders and worship beings that do not exist. There is nothing left to learn. With respect, Commander, I witnessed something today that contradicts those assumptions. You witnessed a wounded animal defending a corpse. That is not remarkable. That is instinct. Valeth wanted to argue. She wanted to explain what she had seen in the human's eyes, the fire that burned there, even when his body was failing. But she knew Drex would not understand. He saw the galaxy in simple terms. Strong species survived. Weak species did not. Humans were weak. My request is denied, Drex said. We leave orbit in 6 hours. The colony will be marked as lost, and the human will be classified as deceased. He is not deceased. He will be soon enough. Drex turned away from her. Return to your quarters, Scholar Sin, and do not waste my time with this matter again. Valeth left the bridge without another word. She walked through the corridors of the ship with her hands clasped behind her back, her mind racing. The human was still down there, still alive, and in 6 hours, they would leave him to die alone. She could not accept that. That night, When the ship was quiet and most of the crew was resting, Valith made her way to the shuttle bay. She moved carefully, avoiding the sensors she knew were watching. She had studied the ship's security systems many times. She knew their blind spots. The shuttle was small and fast. She powered it up in silence and slipped out of the bay before anyone could stop her. By the time they noticed she was gone, she would already be on the surface. She found the cargo vessel exactly where she had left it. But the human was no longer inside. Valith followed the trail of blood and footprints across the sand. He had crawled out of the wreckage sometime during the night. He had dragged himself to a small shelter made of broken metal and cloth, a structure barely large enough to protect him from the wind. Inside, she found him sitting against the wall, his wounds wrapped in torn fabric, a container of water clutched in his hand. He was awake, his eyes locked onto her the moment she entered. He raised a weapon, some kind of human projectile device, and aimed it at her chest. His hand was shaking badly, but his aim did not waver. "Stop," he said. His voice was rough and dry. "Who are you?" "My name is Vela Sin. I am a Kira scholar." She held up her empty hands. "I am not here to harm you, Kirith." He said the word like it tasted bad. "Your people were here earlier. I saw your ships in the sky. You did not come down to help." "No, we did not." "Then why are you here now?" Valith hesitated. She was not sure how to answer that question. She was not sure she understood the answer herself. "I wanted to see if you were still alive." "Why?" "Because I saw you fight. Earlier today, I watched you defend your crewmate against the scavengers." The human's expression changed. His eyes moved to something behind Valith, and she realized he was looking at the cargo vessel in the distance, looking at the place where he had left the body. "She is gone," Valith said quietly. "The scavengers came after you lost consciousness." "I am sorry." The human lowered his weapon slowly. His shoulders dropped. His entire body seemed to fold inward, as if the weight of her words was crushing him from the inside. He did not cry. He did not scream. He simply sat there in silence, staring at nothing. "Her name was Mira," he said finally. "Myra Cole. She was my captain. You fought very hard to protect her. Not hard enough." Valith moved closer. She sat down across from him, folding her long legs beneath her. "I have a question, one that I do not understand." The human looked at her. His eyes were empty now, hollow with grief. "Ask. Your captain was already dead when you defended her. You could not save her. You could not bring her back. By every logical measure, your actions served no purpose." Valith paused. "Why did you fight so hard for a corpse?" The human was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but steady. "Because she would have done the same for me." Valith frowned. "But she is dead. She cannot do anything for you now. That does not matter." The human shook his head slowly. "Myra saved my life a dozen times. She pulled me out of trouble, believed in me when nobody else did. When the Virax attacked, she stayed behind so the rest of us could escape. She died for us. For me. And you feel obligated to repay that debt, even though she cannot receive payment? It is not about debt. It is about respect. It is about love." The human met her eyes. "Where I come from, we do not abandon our dead. We carry them with us. Their memory, their sacrifice, their trust. That weight is not a burden. It is an honor." Valith did not know what to say. The Kirith did not think this way. When a Kirith died, their contributions were recorded in the archives, and the collective moved forward. There was no lingering, no grief. Death was simply an end, nothing more. But this human carried his dead with him like precious cargo. He suffered for them. He fought for them. He let their memories shape his every action. It was illogical. It was inefficient. And yet, somehow, it was also beautiful. "I came here to rescue you," Velis said. "But I did not ask if you wanted to be rescued." The human almost smiled. It was a small, sad expression that did not reach his eyes. "I do not have anywhere else to go. My ship is destroyed. My crew is dead. I am alone. Then come with me. I will take you somewhere safe." "Why would you do that?" "Your commander said no." "Yes," Valeth admitted. "He did, and you came anyway." "Yes." The human studied her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand, a gesture Valeth recognized from the archives. A greeting, an agreement, a sign of trust. "My name is Jack Mercer," he said. "Thank you for coming back." Valeth took his hand carefully. His grip was weak, but his eyes were strong. "Thank you for staying alive," she said. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The cave was not much to look at. It was a narrow opening in a rock formation about 2 kilometers from the ruined colony, hidden by sand dunes and natural debris. Valeth had found it during her initial survey of the area. She had noted it as a possible shelter site, never thinking she would actually need to use it. Now it was the only thing keeping them alive. Jack Mercer sat with his back against the cool stone wall, his wounds freshly bandaged with supplies from Valeth's medical kit. He looked better than he had the day before, but he was still weak. His body needed rest, food, and time to heal. None of those things were easy to find on a dead colony world. Valeth sat across from him, her datapad glowing softly in the dim light. She had been studying human history for hours now, scrolling through records and reports that stretched back thousands of years. The more she read, the less she understood. "You fought a war that lasted 30 years, she said suddenly. "Over religion." Jack looked up at her. "Which one? Which one?" Valeth blinked. "There was more than one?" "There were dozens. Maybe hundreds. Humans have been fighting each other since the beginning." Jack shrugged weakly. "We are not a peaceful species. And yet you form bonds with each other. Deep bonds. You die for people you have never met. You sacrifice everything for ideas that have no physical form." Valeth shook her head. "It does not make sense. It does not have to make sense. It just is. That is not a satisfying answer." Jack smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him, and it transformed his face in ways she did not expect. "Humans are not satisfying creatures. We contradict ourselves constantly. We love and hate the same things. We build and destroy. We want peace, but prepare for war." He paused. "I think that is what makes us who we are." Valeth set down her datapad. "Tell me about your captain." "About Myra Cole." The smile faded from Jack's face, replaced by something softer and more painful. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. I want to understand why she meant so much to you." Jack was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the cave wall as if seeing something far beyond it, something only he could see. "I met Myra 8 years ago," he said finally. "I was working on a salvage ship, barely surviving. Bad pay, bad conditions, bad people. I was young and angry and convinced that the galaxy owed me something it would never give. And Myra changed that. She saved me." Jack's voice grew rough. "Not physically, mentally. She saw something in me that I could not see in myself. She gave me a job on her cargo ship, taught me how to be an engineer, treated me like family. She believed in me when I did not believe in myself. That is why you feel indebted to her." "No." Jack shook his head firmly. "It is not about debt. I told you that already. Myra never asked for anything in return. She helped me because she wanted to, not because she expected payment. That is what humans do for the people they love. Valeth struggled with the concept. Among the Kirith, every action was measured by its value to the collective. Help was given because it served a purpose. Sacrifice was made because it benefited the whole. The idea of giving without expectation, of loving without condition, was foreign to everything she had been taught. When the Varax attacked, Jack continued, Myra ordered everyone to the escape pods. But the pods were damaged. Someone had to stay behind and activate the manual override. Someone had to die so the rest of us could live. And she chose herself. She did not choose herself. She ordered me to go. I refused. I wanted to stay. I wanted to die with her. Jack's hands tightened into fists. She knocked me out and threw me into the pod herself. When I woke up, the ship was already burning. And she was gone. Valeth felt something strange in her chest. It was not a physical sensation, but something deeper. An emotion she did not have a name for. Sympathy, perhaps. Or sorrow. You blame yourself, she said, every day. But you could not have stopped her. She was your captain. She made the decision. I know. Jack looked at her, and his eyes were wet with unshed tears. But logic does not erase feeling. I should have been faster, stronger. I should have found another way. I failed her, and now she is gone, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. That sounds like torture. It is. It is. But it is also a gift. Jack wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Myra taught me that pain has purpose. Grief is not weakness. It is proof that we loved something, that we were connected to something greater than ourselves. The weight of her memory keeps me going. It reminds me why I fight. Valeth was silent for a long time. She thought about her own people, about the Kirith way of processing death. They archived the contributions of the fallen and moved on. They did not grieve. They did not carry the weight of memory. They simply continued, efficient and cold-eyed, and for the first time in her life, Valeth wondered if that was a flaw rather than a strength. Your people, she said slowly. They all feel this way? This connection to the dead? Most of us. In different ways. Jack leaned his head back against the wall. We build monuments to our fallen. We tell their stories. We name our children after them. We refuse to let them be forgotten. Even when remembering causes pain? Especially then. Jack closed his eyes. The pain is the point. It means they mattered. Valeth picked up her datapad again. But this time she did not read. She simply sat there, holding it in her hands, thinking about everything Jack had told her. She had come to this planet to study the aftermath of violence. She had expected to find death and destruction, nothing more. Instead, she had found something she never anticipated. She had found a species that carried its dead like treasure, that turned grief into strength, that loved so deeply that even death could not break the bond. The Galactic Council called humans primitive, irrational, minor. But Valeth was beginning to think the Council was wrong. A beeping sound interrupted her thoughts. She looked at her datapad and felt her blood run cold. Commander Drex Torin had discovered her missing shuttle. He had launched a search, and his ships were getting closer. We have a problem, she said. Jack opened his eyes. What kind of problem? The kind that comes with weapons and does not take no for an answer. Jack pushed himself to his feet, wincing at the pain in his side. Then we need to move. You can barely walk. I can walk enough. He met her eyes with that same stubborn fire she had seen in the cargo hold. I did not survive this long just to give up now. Valeth wanted to argue, but she knew it would be pointless. Humans did not give up. That was the whole point. Then follow me, she said, and stay quiet. Together, they slipped out of the cave and into the night. They found a deeper cave 2 kilometers north. hidden beneath an overhang of ancient stone. The entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for Valeth to squeeze through, and the interior was dark and cold. But it was safe. For now, Jack collapsed against the wall as soon as they were inside. His breathing was ragged, and fresh blood was seeping through his bandages. The journey had cost him more than he wanted to admit. Valeth knelt beside him and checked his wounds. "You are bleeding again. I noticed." Jack managed a weak smile. "I will be fine. Just need a minute." "You need more than a minute. You need a medical bay and proper treatment." "Well, I do not have those things. So a minute will have to do." Valeth wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. Instead, she focused on cleaning and rebandaging his wounds with the last of her supplies. Her hands moved quickly and efficiently, but her mind was elsewhere. Drex was hunting them. She could feel it in her bones. He would not stop until he found her, until he made an example of her for defying his orders. And when he did, Jack would die. She could not let that happen. "Why are you doing this?" Jack asked suddenly. Valeth looked up at him. "Doing what?" "Risking everything for me. You said your commander denied your request. You stole a shuttle. You are hiding from your own people." He shook his head slowly. "Why? I am just one human. I am not worth this." "That is not true." "It is true by every logical measure. Your career, your reputation, your entire life. You are throwing it all away for a stranger." Valeth was quiet for a long moment. She finished bandaging his arm and sat back on her heels, her silver eyes thoughtful. "I have spent my entire life studying other species," she said finally. "I have read thousands of reports, analyzed millions of data points. I thought I understood the galaxy. I thought I knew how things worked, and now I am not so sure." She met his eyes. "I watched you fight today. I watched you stand alone against creatures that should have killed you. And I realized something." "What?" "The archives say that humans are weak. That you are too emotional, too irrational, too fragile to matter. But that is not what I saw. I saw strength. Real strength. The kind that has nothing to do with muscles or weapons." Jack was silent. "You did not fight because you thought you could win," Valeth continued. "You fought because giving up was not an option. Because the memory of your captain meant more to you than your own survival. Because you would rather die on your feet than live on your knees. That is just stubbornness. No, it is something more. Something the Kirith do not have a word for." Valeth paused. "I want to understand what it is. I want to understand you. And I cannot do that if you are dead." Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a rough, painful sound that echoed in the darkness of the cave. "You are a strange one, Valeth." "So I have been told." Before either of them could say more, a sound reached their ears. A clicking, chittering noise that made Valeth's blood run cold. Vorx. Jack heard it too. His eyes went hard, and he pushed himself to his feet despite the pain. "How many?" Valeth moved to the cave entrance and peered out into the night. Her heart sank. "At least a dozen. They must have followed our trail. Can we run?" "Not with your injuries. They would catch us before we made it 100 meters." Jack grabbed a piece of broken stone from the cave floor and tested its weight in his hand. "Then we fight." "You cannot fight a dozen Varax alone. You can barely stand. I was not planning to fight alone." Jack looked at her. "You have a weapon, right?" Valeth touched the energy pistol at her hip. She had never used it in combat. She had never needed to. Kirith scholars did not fight. They observed. They documented. They stayed far away from danger. "I have never fired this in a real battle," she admitted. "I am not trained for combat. Then stay behind me." That is absurd. I am stronger than you. My species is more durable. If anyone should be in front, it is me. Jack shook his head firmly. You saved my life. It is my turn now. That is not logical. You are wounded. You are exhausted. You will die. Maybe. Jack moved toward the cave entrance, gripping his stone weapon tightly. But you will live. And that is enough for me. Valeth grabbed his arm. Jack, please. Let me help. He looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. You already have. More than you know. Then he pulled free and stepped out of the cave to face the Varax alone. They came at him in a wave of claws and teeth. Jack met them with nothing but a rock and pure, desperate determination. He swung and kicked and dodged, using the narrow terrain to keep them from surrounding him. He was not graceful. He was not skilled. He was simply relentless. Valeth watched from the cave entrance, her hand frozen on her pistol. She could not move. She could not think. She had never seen anything like this. One human, broken and bleeding, holding the line against impossible odds. A Vorax slashed his shoulder. He screamed but did not stop. Another one bit his leg. He kicked it away and kept fighting. Blood poured from a dozen wounds, but he refused to fall. He refused to retreat. He stood between the Vorax and the cave entrance like a wall of flesh and fury because behind him was Valeth. And he would rather die than let them reach her. Something broke inside her. Some barrier she had built around her heart over years of Kirith training and emotional control. She raised her pistol and fired. The beam caught a Vorax in the chest and dropped it instantly. She fired again and again, her hand steady, her aim true. She stepped out of the cave and stood beside Jack, adding her fire to his desperate defense. Together, they fought. Together, they held the line. When the last Vorax finally fell, the ground was littered with bodies. Jack stood swaying on his feet, covered in blood, his chest heaving with exhaustion. He looked at Valeth with wonder in his eyes. You came out, he said. You fought. Of course I did. Valeth lowered her pistol. Did you think I would let you die alone? Jack smiled. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed forward. Valeth caught him before he hit the ground. She held his broken body in her arms and felt something she had never felt before. Connection. Real connection. The kind that transcended species and logic and everything she had been taught. She finally understood. Humans did not fight alone because they thought they could win. They fought alone because they refused to let others pay the price. They stood in front of danger because protecting someone else was worth more than protecting themselves. And now, for the first time in her life, Valeth knew what that felt like. Hold on, she whispered to Jack's unconscious form. I will not let you go. I promise. She carried him back into the cave and waited for dawn. Commander Drex Torin arrived with the dawn. His shuttle landed in a cloud of dust and sand, and he emerged with a security team of 6 armed Kirith soldiers. They moved across the desert with cold efficiency, following the trail of Vorax bodies straight to the cave where Valeth was waiting. She stood at the entrance with her pistol at her side, her body positioned between Drex and the unconscious human behind her. She knew she could not win this fight. She knew resistance was futile, but she stood there anyway. Drex stopped a few meters away and studied her with his silver eyes. His expression was one of disappointment mixed with contempt. You disappoint me, Scholar Sin. You were one of our most promising minds. And you threw it all away for this. He gestured at Jack's unconscious form. A human. A member of a species so primitive that they still kill each other over resources they could easily share. You are wrong about them, Valeth said. Am I? The evidence suggests otherwise. Humans are weak, irrational, and short-lived. They contribute nothing to galactic progress. They are statistically insignificant. Statistics do not tell the whole story. Drex raised an eyebrow. Then please, enlighten me. What is this human offer that justifies your treason? Valith took a deep breath. She had been thinking about this moment since the night before, preparing her words carefully. But now that it was here, she realized that words alone would never be enough. She had to show him. This human fought off a dozen Varaks alone, she said. He was wounded, exhausted, and had no logical hope of survival. But he did not run. He did not surrender. He stood between me and death because he believed my life was worth more than his own. Self-sacrifice is not remarkable. Many species exhibit similar behavior. For family, yes. For children. For genetic legacy. Valith shook her head. But Jack barely knew me. I am not his family. I am not his species. I am a stranger from a people who left him to die. And yet, he was willing to give everything to protect me. Drex was silent. That is what humans are, Valith continued. They are not weak. They are stubborn. They are not irrational. They are loyal. They carry the weight of their dead and use it to fuel their determination. They love so deeply that they will fight impossible battles for people they barely know. Pretty words. But they change nothing. Then I invoke the right of academic protection. Valith straightened her spine and met Drex's eyes without flinching. Under Section 7 of the Scholar's Code, I claim this human as a protected subject of study. He falls under my authority until my research is complete. Drex's expression darkened. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. The right is ancient law. It has never been overturned. And you do not have the authority to deny it. One of the soldiers leaned toward Drex and spoke quietly. She is correct, Commander. The right is still valid. If she invokes it, we cannot interfere with her subject. Drex's hands tightened into fists. For a long moment, Valith thought he might attack her anyway. But finally, he exhaled and stepped back. Very well, he said coldly. You have your human. But know this, Valith. When you return to Kirith space, you will face a tribunal. Your career is over. Your reputation is destroyed. You will spend the rest of your life as an outcast. Then I will stand alone. Valith lifted her chin. Like he did. Something flickered in Drex's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Or the faintest hint of respect. But it vanished quickly, replaced by his usual cold mask. Take them both to the ship, he ordered. The human receives medical treatment. Nothing more. The soldiers moved forward and lifted Jack's unconscious body onto a stretcher. Valith walked beside them, her hand resting lightly on Jack's arm. She did not look back at Drex. She had won. But she knew the real battle was just beginning. Jack woke 3 days later in a medical bay he did not recognize. The lights were soft and blue, and the bed beneath him was surprisingly comfortable. His wounds had been treated with technology far beyond anything human medicine could offer. Valith was sitting beside him, reading from her datapad. Welcome back, she said, without looking up. You were unconscious for 72 hours. The doctors say you should make a full recovery. Jack tried to sit up and winced. Where am I? The Kirith observation vessel. In orbit around the planet where we met. And the commander? Drex? He is angry. But he cannot touch you. I made sure of that. Jack stared at her. How? Valith finally looked up from her datapad. Her silver eyes were warm in a way he had not seen before. I invoked an ancient law that protects my research subjects. It was a technicality, but it worked. You saved my life, again. You saved mine first. We are even now. Jack laughed, then winced at the pain in his ribs. I do not think that is how it works. Valeth set down her datapad and leaned forward. I submitted a report to the Galactic Council yesterday. About you. About humans. What kind of report? I argued that your species has been misclassified. That you are not primitive or irrational. That you have developed something the rest of the galaxy has overlooked. She paused. The ability to turn weakness into strength. To carry your dead with you as fuel for your determination. To love so deeply that you will fight impossible battles for people who are not your family, not your species, not even your friends. Jack was quiet for a long moment. And what did the council say? Some dismissed it. Some ignored it. But some listened. Valeth smiled. Change does not happen overnight. But it starts with one voice. One report. One story. One story. Jack repeated. Yours. The ship hummed around them, steady and quiet. Jack looked out the window at the stars beyond, thinking about everything that had happened. Mira. The attack. The fight. Valeth. He had lost so much. But he had also gained something he never expected. A connection that crossed species and culture and logic. A friend who had risked everything to save a stranger. What happens now? He asked. Now you heal. And when you are ready, we will take you back to human space. Valeth stood and moved toward the door. After that, the choice is yours. Wait. Jack reached out and caught her hand. Will I see you again? Valeth turned and looked at him. Her expression was difficult to read, but there was something in her eyes. Something soft and hopeful. I would like that, she said. Very much. Then I will find you. When I am ready. When I have a new ship and a new crew. Jack squeezed her hand gently. I do not forget the people who stand with me. That is not how humans work, I know. Valeth smiled. That is what I love about your species. She left the room, and Jack settled back against his pillow. His body was broken, but his spirit was not. He thought about Myra, about the weight of her memory on his shoulders. She would have liked Valeth. She would have approved of everything that had happened. And somewhere out there, beyond the stars and the darkness and the unknown, Jack knew that the galaxy was starting to change. Not quickly, not easily, but one story at a time, because humans did not give up. They did not surrender. They fought for what they believed in, even when they were alone. And sometimes, if they were very lucky, they found someone willing to stand beside them. Jack closed his eyes and smiled. He was not alone anymore.